have any viewer mail yet.
No, we don't have any viewer mail yet. If you would like to send a question in, have me answer it, send it to doug@riskandrewardtv.org, and I'd be happy to try to answer your question. I do have a question, though, that a client sent in, so I'd like to try it. The question is, what is the difference between real rates of return and nominal rates of return?
That's a good question.
It is a good question. Many people don't understand the difference. So the nominal rate of return on any investment, for example, the amount of return you get on a savings account, savings accounts are very low right now. Well, the nominal rate of return is the one that's published. It's the one that you see. It's the one that's quoted. It's the actual amount of money that you get. But there's two components of that. The nominal rate of return is made up of the real return, in other words, your increase in purchasing power, how many goods and services you can buy at the end, plus a rate of inflation. And inflation's a problem.
That can change.
Yeah, so we look at I nominal equals the investment return that's real, which is the increase in your purchasing power, plus an inflation factor. The inflation factor is the one that obviously people forget all the time. And so when we think of how much money we get, it's relative to how many goods and services we can buy in the future. So if you invest your money at, let's say 6%, and inflation over this time period is going to be 3%,
all right,
then our real rate of return is 3%.
Oh, not so good.
This is the number that matters. So the 6% that you are feeling isn't the increase in your purchasing power, because prices have gone up 3%. So if you get 6% back, but it takes you a year, and prices have gone up 3% in the year, you can't buy 6% more goods. You can only buy 3% more goods.
Okay.
And that's your real rate of return. So the real rate of return is your increase in the amount of stuff you can buy with that money. And the inflation is what usually inflation decreases. We could have deflation, which would increase it, but we typically don't have deflation. Inflation is what decreases your purchasing power. I'm not sure I said that right. Let me draw you a picture. So inflation going up decreases your purchasing power. So if prices are rising 3% and you buy something for $100 this year, at the end of the year it'll cost $103, which means you can buy less with the same amount of money.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay. So right now we have nominal interest rates in savings accounts of like 1.25%, and then if we look for inflation, inflation's kind of complicated. I won't get into it.
It's pretty low right now.
It's very low, but there's several measures of it. One is called the GDP deflator. One is called the CPI index. It depends on how you measure it, what number you're going to use. I personally like the GDP deflator, which is 0.4% right now. So 1.25 is your nominal return on, say, a savings account or a CD, and inflation is 0.4%, which means you're earning what, 0.85%, which is a positive rate of return. It doesn't feel like you're making very much, but prices are very low. They're not rising very much, if at all, and so you're actually getting a real return.
At least it's positive.
That's right. Now, what some people will do is, because they don't like the 1.25% over the next year in the CD or whatever they're doing, they will go out further to try to get more interest and say, here's a great idea. Let's do a 2.5% over 3 years. Well, now the 2.5% bond or CD over 3 years is your nominal rate of return you're going to get, but now you're trying to predict future inflation over the next 3 years. And if future inflation over the next 3 years, instead of being 0.4, prices start rising at, say, 3%, which isn't an unbelievable rate of price increase, then you're actually losing 0.5% real return.
Ooh, that's bad.
That's right. So you're actually losing purchasing power by gaining 2.5% because prices are rising faster than the return you're getting.
Okay.
So it's very important that you understand the relationship between real returns and inflation when you make an investment decision. So 1.25% with 0.4% inflation is better, because it's positive, than 2.5% nominal return in the 3% inflation scenario, because you're actually losing purchasing power. So I know this is a little complicated. I did a lesson on it in the lesson segment, so I'll put a link into the lessons so you can watch more videos on this. But it's a really important part of understanding how the financial world works, because you'll make better decisions if you know that what your real goal is to increase your real rate of return, not your nominal rate of return.
So increase that purchasing power.
That's right.